The most successful video game soundtrack of all time was Electronic Arts' NBA Live 2003.
The NBA Live 2003 soundtrack from EA Sports actually had artists like Snoop Dogg, Busta Rhymes, Fat Joe, Brandy, Angie Martinez, who's a local DJ here in New York City. And you can't buy them on a CD, it's a compilation disc. And this soundtrack from this one basketball game went platinum.
The messed up thing about the soundtrack to NBA Live Up High, everybody says it's great, it went first soundtrack to go platinum. This guy bought 500 of those records. I bought another 1,500. Gave them out at our bar mitzvahs.
It used to be the ultimate status symbol or vanity project was like having your own record label. So now EA, the big video game company, says, hey, we're gonna have a record label too. If P. Diddy can do it, so can we.
EA has partnered with Astralwerks and Rhino, and now what they've come up with is EA Tracks, and basically it's a company that creates music just for games.
You know, we found artists in the last year or two like Bishop Lamont, and I understand from him that Dre himself was playing an EA game and said, oh my God, that band's unbelievable, and you know, who is that guy? And went out and actually signed the guy.
I love video games, played them forever, so when I got the opportunity, I was just like, okay. It was a dope team of producers called The Rips, and so they had some beats, and we picked the best one, and it just clicked. It just felt good for the game and the vibe. And that's how it happened.
Music plays a major role in video games today. I know my brother will come to me and be like, yo, did you hear that new song? I'm like, it must be exclusive to the video game. I don't know, who is it? So I think a lot of new artists are actually coming up through that lane that video games is providing nowadays.
So many people will come up to me, you know, on the street and be like, oh, you must be in a band, you know, like, what's your band? And I say, Good Charlotte, and they're like, oh, Madden, yeah, I know you guys. It really, you know, transcended to a whole different group of people who didn't listen to Good Charlotte's music, and that was the first time when we were just like, if any video game company asks us to be in the game, we're doing it.
I think bands are agreeing to appear on video games because video games give you a captive audience. If you've been up till 3 o'clock in the morning hearing the same track over and over again, you're gonna hear it throughout the rest of the week or probably your life even.
Now that nobody's buying CDs in the store anymore, everyone's downloading them, stealing them, burning them, you gotta find new ways to get that synergy going to get your track out there. So when you put something like Green Day's American Idiot on a video game first, that's like a great way to sell a disc.
EA, they took an interesting step. They used their last Madden game to debut Green Day's American Idiot single even before the actual record was out. So the only way DJs were able to play it on the radio was by bootlegging it from the video game.
I'm sure there were a lot of people at the time who questioned, why would you put Green Day in a band? You always talk about cutting edge, and they're a 10-year-old band. Well, we felt Green Day was going to continue to be on the cutting edge. Ultimately, it's cutting edge and new music, whether that's from a new band or an established band. That's up to the music itself and where the career path has gone.
If you want to talk about the development of music in video games, you only got two names. You got EA and Rockstar, and these are the guys that drag the entire industry into the 21st century.
Grand Theft Auto came on the scene and bam, everything changed. You know, now you're driving down the street, shooting a gun, changing the radio station, but you're listening to classic hits.
The fact that you can just sit there in your car at a stoplight or just cruise around and flip through the radio stations and you can amuse yourself for hours doing this.
You've got everything from a hip-hop station, you have talk radio, there's a country station, there's a heavy metal and punk station, there's a reggae channel. Anything you want to listen to, it's there. While you're kicking ass, while you're stealing that lady's car, you can listen to whatever you want to hear.
And it would go on and on and on. You know, it would take a while for you to really get a repeat or to hear the same song more than once. And that really opened up the door to show you what could be done.
Although it has its flaws, really. I remember listening to one of the stations in the car and Belle Biv DeVoe comes on. I mean, please, right?
Yeah.
I love Biv.
And Belle, I love Belle.
DeVoe is over.
Actually, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and Vice City both had big CD box sets that came out alongside the games, and they were actually really cool. You can get the whole 5-disc set loaded all up in your iPod and just cruise around town, almost like you're in your own personal Grand Theft Auto.
Activision continued in this tradition with the new True Crime game, which has tons of tracks from New York City and East Coast rap artists.
In this city, trust no one.
Okay, easy killer.
It's going to have a lot of hardcore and punk bands in it.
And they're all from New York, so
Yeah.
it's got that New York City vibes.
Right, they got a lot of star power in it. Redman threw down 2 new tracks for it.
I think the Cro-Mags, Sick of It All, Agnostic Front, and a bunch more, which is pretty cool, which is really, you know, the essence of of New York. It's hip hop and also hardcore and punk rock music.
It's a two-way street because artists are becoming more familiar with the video games as well as the kids are getting more familiar with the artists. So it's a really great marriage, and it helps us find more fans. And now artists are getting involved and starting to make their own video games.
So you had Def Jam Fight for New York, where if you ever want to see Busta Rhymes get down and beat somebody senseless, he moves pretty fast for kind of a tubby guy.
Def Jam Fight for New York is a Def Jam game. Def Jam, one of the largest hip-hop labels, putting their characters in the game, Fight for New York.
I'd have to go with Biz Markie if I were to take sides, because he's the human beatbox. Next to Dougie Fresh, he can't be beat.
And then you have 50 Cent with his Bulletproof game, where he's not only rapping and performing, he's in the game, along with Tony Yayo, his explosive expert.
Long story short, 50 came out with his own video game wherein he's capping ass, busting caps, banging hoes, and shooting rock, which means throwing dice. It's not a drug thing. You know, I don't want 50 calling me up. Paige and me.
It's gonna have 13 new tracks, and a lot will be him, and then his crew like Tony Yayo and all the other boys will be putting stuff into that.
That's the way it's going. I mean, pretty soon it's going to be no album released. You have to buy this game to get this album, period.
With bands inspiring video games and vice versa, crossed with movies, mixed with music, the next-gen consoles are guaranteed to blow us all away.
The 360 is really interesting in terms of video game music because it's the first time that you will have total control over the soundtrack for every game that you play.
This generation of video gamers, they're really all about sort of making the experience their own. So they like to rip their music and put it on so that the high points of the game are really their sort of music.
Microsoft has mandated that even if they put music in there, it has to coordinate with this internal music player that they have, so someone can just plug in their MP3s to the Xbox, and then if you're playing Madden, or even if you're playing some puzzle game on Xbox Live Arcade, like you can play any track you want.
I guess with the PSP, I mean, you got this whole sort of multimedia experience. You know, you got an MP3 player and a movie player at the same time. Like, obviously that's a great place to expose people to music on.
You can not only listen to music from, say, EA Tracks, but you can sort of download music and put it directly onto your PSP, so you can just listen to it that way.
Music labels are so concerned with handheld consoles because it's a way of putting their product in the consumer's hands at all times. For me, sitting on the subway, 20 minutes on the subway is 5 songs for a label to, get in your ears.
Video games are going to become the new radio and jukebox because it's what people are playing, and people raised up in the video game age are now playing video games still. It's not like it's something you stop doing, and they're still going to be listening to music, and new music is going to begin the new video games.
I can very well see how that can be an introduction, and I imagine right now at this moment there are plenty of children being introduced to music and artists solely through video games. That makes a lot of sense.
There's too much of a hidden agenda with radio. With video games, that people are trying to sell what kids want, and the people that are creating the games are pretty much kids that like this music. So there's an honesty in it.
Yeah, and now you have customizable soundtracks, you can develop playlists, you can unlock secret songs, you can have exclusive songs, you can have whole albums, videos, movie, anything that you want, it's right there.
But I think next gen is going to really bring us to where we want to be. An online relationship, an interactive relationship with the gamer. The idea of not just giving you 50, 60, 70 songs, but the idea of being able to give you tens of thousands of songs on a 24/7 basis. The point is that it'll ultimately be up to the gamer to customize his or her musical experience.